Beryl is an ultimate sword master living in a peaceful rural area. Though he's reached the state of sword and self as one, he still tirelessly trains. But the most important thing is that he's over 30 and still single. His venerable old father frequently brings this up, saying he really wants a grandchild to hold. Beryl talks about his training, but his dad thinks 20 years is more than enough. It's time to find a wife. The old man feels his son is ignoring his filial duties by not fulfilling his father's wish. Beryl's main job is currently teaching swordsmanship to many students around the village. With more and more students coming, he uses it as an excuse. These are all descendants anyway. Besides, without a wife, where am I going to get grandchildren? His dad thinks there's no shortage of beautiful girls at this dojo, he could just pick one to be his wife. Beryl refuses and has to go somewhere else to stop the old man from nagging him. Inside, he continues sparring and instructing his students. Since the day he was born, Beryl has always held a sword. When he was young, he dreamed of becoming a great swordsman, but he lacked confidence in himself. Plus, now that he's older, his speed is declining. Even so, he's not sad, he feels he belongs here. Although he's not a great swordsman, Beryl has a talent for teaching, which is why so many disciples come to learn. Furthermore, almost all of those he trains go on to achieve success. At dinner, his father again brings up finding a wife for his son, turning to his wife, "You think so too, right?" She gently replies, "That will happen sooner or later." Beryl thinks his mother is amazing. With just one sentence, she stops his father from saying anything. However, she also really wants a grandchild to hold. Just then, an old student knocks on the door. It's Alucia, currently the captain of the Royal Knights. Consider Beryl's teaching efforts repaid. He asks what brings her here today, and she explains that she is also currently teaching swordsmanship to her subordinates. Beryl feels proud because Alucia was a talented rough diamond from a young age. Today, she's here to announce that Beryl will become a special instructor for the knights. He doesn't understand at all and is shown a letter of introduction with the royal seal. If he refuses this, he'll definitely be executed, no joke. Alucia urges him, "Master, please prepare quickly, I'll be waiting outside in the carriage to depart for tomorrow." Beryl doesn't teach today, so she deliberately came today to avoid affecting the dojo. His father agrees, also requesting that he bring a daughter-in-law back, and even pairing Beryl with Alucia because she is very beautiful. He thinks his father is talking nonsense because there is quite a large age difference between them. This is what Beryl thinks, unaware that Alucia actually likes him. She doesn't care about the age difference, but she doesn't dare tell Beryl directly about her feelings. Later, while in the carriage, Beryl asks if his junior disciple still uses the sword he gave her. This was a gift after graduation. He's happy to see Alucia cherish it, but thinks the captain of the Royal Knights should use a better sword. She happily replies, "I feel like this gift is still very handy, so I don't want to change it." He always thought the teacher should be better than the student, but perhaps Alucia surpassed him long ago. Being respected, Beryl is very happy, but at over 30 years old, keeping up with the current generation is a bit difficult. The girl then calls her teacher Holy Sword of the countryside. Finally, the Master Swordsman has come to the capital. Alucia calling Beryl Holy Sword is completely justified, because he has trained many top swordsmen and adventurers. Beryl self-deprecatingly thinks that perhaps only this student thinks that way. Becoming an instructor for the Royal Knights is very suitable for him. Most importantly, she wants to take this opportunity to improve her relationship with her teacher. And so they traveled until nearly evening, when they finally arrived at the capital. Since it's been a long time since he's been out like this, the teacher plans to buy souvenirs. The student also finds him a place to rest for the night, then they'll figure out what to do tomorrow. As expected, Beryl is not used to life in a crowded urban area. The next morning, they stood before the entire army for the introduction. Alucia states that her teacher is much stronger than she is. The result makes many people unhappy, thinking that this is just a country bumpkin with nothing special. After saying a few words, Beryl is praised for being too emotional in his speech. According to the contract, from now on, he will have to come here to teach a few days a week, which will not affect his work at the dojo. At this time, another student runs over to greet him. She's Karuni, a junior in the same class as Alucia. Although still young, this girl is currently working as a knight. Remembering back then, this girl always tried to practice to get here. The dream has been realized, and the credit is also thanks to Beryl's teaching. They will be here to support, so they hope he will order them around as he pleases. In the evening, Beryl returns home in a very happy mood. Even happier when there are guests at home. It's Jandrich, one of Beryl's elite disciples. This young man now has a family and children, unlike the teacher who still doesn't have a single relationship. That's why his father asks his son to return to the royal capital to pick up girls, and let Jandrich take care of the swordsmanship teaching at the dojo. The request is that he doesn't come back here until he gets a wife, shocking Beryl. He asks and finds out that the young man moved back to the countryside because his wife just gave birth, and as an adventurer, he wanted to find a peaceful place to live during this time. Beryl feels a little wasteful because he has reached platinum rank and now has to quit. Jandrich always remembers his teacher's kindness. Beryl thinks that he taught him 10 years ago. And achieving success now is due to his own efforts, he didn't help at all. Adventurers are rich, but it comes with danger, so staying here to teach swordsmanship is also good. The old man strongly believes in this disciple, wants to hand everything over to the young man, and push his son to the royal capital, so it's a win-win situation. Although Beryl didn't want to, he was cornered and had no choice but to accept the outcome. The next day, the teacher had to ask Alucia to help him find a boarding house. She felt lucky because that would make it easier to woo him. The inn they stayed at the night before was very good, but the price was high. Now that he needs to stay in the city for a while, his top priority is to choose a cheap place. The girl also invites her teacher to live in her house to save money, but Beryl refuses outright because that's not right. Hearing that, she's a little sad, then invites him to eat, considering this a real date. At this moment, someone suddenly criticizes the commander of the Royal Knights for being with a strange man. Hearing that, Beryl is a little worried because he's afraid of bringing shame to Alucia. The speaker is Lysandra, her archenemy. Because they don't want to argue, they leave. However, the big girl still follows to ask who this man called teacher is. Beryl has never seen a black adventurer badge before, so he's curious. Looking up, he's called teacher by Lysandra, because in fact, she was also taught by him. They haven't met for a very long time. She tries to rekindle the old memories, saying that she was adopted by Beryl and taught swordsmanship. Hearing that, Beryl also remembers that time, not expecting her to grow up so much. Lysandra always wanted to tell her teacher about her success, but didn't have the opportunity. Beryl smiles, once you've grown up, everyone is busy. It's good to see her become someone admirable like this. Asking about the reason they're together, Alucia says that the teacher is an instructor for the Royal Knights and that she's looking for a place to stay for Beryl. Hearing that, Lysandra thinks that no one is better at finding a suitable place than her. This also makes sense because she's been an adventurer for so many years. Again, the two keep fighting each other, making Beryl confused. They searched until the afternoon, when they finally found a place that met all the criteria. Beryl also has to thank Alucia, and praises that they are indeed close. They smile and ask to leave so the teacher can rest. The next morning is the first day to start training the young knights. However, the vice captain does not accept it. To be an instructor, he must be better than them, so he wants to test his skills with the teacher. Alucia also introduces Beryl to this young man, Drought, but she also agrees to the challenge on her own, considering this a good opportunity to show them his strength. Suddenly pulled into a battle, Beryl had to comply. Everyone shows contempt, thinking that he's only praised by the captain, but there's no way he's as strong as the rumors say. Beryl doesn't care because he's just a middle-aged uncle after all, wanting at least not to lose face in front of the younger generation. The match begins. According to the assessment, Drought has very strong chopping power. But his technique is a bit poor. He can be easily defeated by deflecting the attack. People think that Beryl got lucky, but in reality, he tried to stop in time to avoid hurting others. The young man continues to attack with all his strength. Indeed, the speed and power of each chop are terrible, but the attack method is too simple and predictable. Being knocked back continuously, he unleashes his strongest technique, but somehow Beryl dodges it, immediately slips behind and ends the battle. Alucia also asks the vice captain if he's satisfied. He immediately changes his mind, praising the teacher for being too wonderful, wanting to be taught more in the future. The others also start to stop talking about Beryl's personality. In the evening, the whole group gathers to celebrate the first day of teaching. Drought pays for everything, as an apology for looking down on him. Beryl doesn't care because suddenly there's an old man who comes and demands to be taught. Such a reaction is normal. Beryl also points out many places for the young man to improve. In the countryside at this time, Jandrich is confiding in the teacher's father. He's also very happy that Beryl can leave here. Talented swordsmanship like that is too wasteful if he spends the rest of his life teaching. He claims that he has never met anyone as strong as Beryl. The father is looking forward to his son bringing a daughter-in-law home. A week has passed since Beryl moved to the royal capital to teach swordsmanship. Everyone is very obedient and doesn't have any complaints. He often points out the mistakes of his students so they can improve. Although it's only small things, if done well, half a step is enough to determine victory or defeat. After saying that, he turned around and got looked at, so he was a bit embarrassed. Fortunately, he fought Drought the other day, so everyone is willing to listen to him now. Karuni then ran up to ask if the teacher had any plans for the afternoon, wanting to take him sightseeing because she noticed Beryl wasn't familiar with the city and had just been going back and forth between here and the inn all week. Drought chimed in that it was a waste since there were tons of fun places in the upper districts. That girl got super excited, told the teacher to trust her, and then ran off to change into a fresh outfit. As for Alucia, she was working with relevant parties at this time. Her superiors also asked if the new instructor could be trusted. Alucia simply replied, "The teacher far exceeded expectations, so don't worry." In her mind, she always thought that if she wanted to become a master swordsman, she shouldn't hold a position like hers, because it would be a waste of time to deal with paperwork like today, for example. But if she didn't do that, she wouldn't be able to bring the teacher here. Remembering the memory from the beginning after her family moved to a peaceful rural area to live, Alucia's parents wanted to learn swordsmanship from Beryl because they had heard of the dojo for a long time. Learning how to protect yourself is necessary in this area. There are almost no knights going back and forth, so there are some dangerous elements. At first, Alucia was quite afraid of strangers. The teacher knew this and greeted her gently to get acquainted. The girl felt the gentleness and became less worried. Alucia's training class that year was full of talented people. Later on, the teacher not only taught swordsmanship but also imparted important experience, and his method was extremely effective for a person with poor physical strength like Alucia. It only took a year to transform herself into a completely new person. Every day they practiced the basic exercises again, but for some reason Alucia never got bored. Her strength improved day by day and she got used to fighting. In particular, she was often praised by the teacher, even for the smallest things. Once, Alucia saw Senior Jandrich hesitate to fight the teacher and didn't understand why. Very quickly, the young man lost. When it was Alucia's turn, she was interested at first, but when she started, she realized how Senior felt when facing Beryl. They couldn't find any weaknesses on the teacher, so they felt nervous. "Alucia, calm the student, attacking at the moment I move slightly is very good." In the following period, their dojo went to other places to interact. It was just practice sparring, so Beryl asked them not to attack from the neck up to avoid danger. Students from both sides were allowed to spar, but the victories were mostly for Beryl's students. Alucia faced a young man who wasn't very happy, realizing that this guy was full of openings. She didn't bother to attack first but let him attack and then retaliated. On the way back, she felt that the victory was too easy. Fighting against another school would help gain more experience. She asked the teacher if their dojo was very strong, to which Beryl denied. Alucia saw the all-win result, so it had to be. Beryl himself also defeated the teacher on the other side. He modestly said that his swordsmanship was just to counter them, so that's why. Sometimes two schools will have one side with more advantages, so it's hard to say who will win, and he wants to focus on what he's aiming for more than winning or losing. Suddenly realizing that she had dropped something, Alucia asked to go back to get it. But when she went to find it, the students on the other side wanted to mess with her. They looked resentful that they had lost to a girl, and tried to attack, but Beryl stood up to block, telling them to learn swordsmanship to defend themselves, not to go around hitting people indiscriminately like that. That guy didn't stop and continued to attack, but was defeated. The master on this side heard the noise and came to see, and scolded the stupid people on his side. "It's just that his students are better than yours, that's all." Declaring that they were no match for Beryl, he even bowed his head to apologize instead. Beryl wasn't bothered by this, and simply took his student home. Although the incident wasn't pleasant, Alucia had a changed perspective. The opposing master even had to acknowledge Beryl's strength, yet he was so modest that he never recognized it himself. Alucia also cried because she let her teacher get hurt. Beryl told her she hadn't done anything wrong, and that he should have accompanied her from the start, so it was better this way. He apologized for leaving an unpleasant memory in Alucia's head. Seeing this, he invited her out for a meal as compensation. At that moment, she knew her tears weren't from fear, but from the overwhelming emotions in her heart. Over the following period, Alucia's combat abilities improved, even threatening the person who had taught her swordsmanship. After succeeding, Beryl gifted her a sword as a graduation present, saying that she was strong enough to protect herself and that he had nothing left to teach her, so this would be their last session. She knew she still wasn't a fraction of the swordsman he was, but she couldn't impose on him forever. After accepting the gift, Alucia wanted to prove how incredibly powerful her teacher's skills were, so she participated in the knight's entrance exam. There, she defeated all of the judges and veteran knights, none of whom could keep up with Alucia's speed, signifying that they were far inferior. She joined the knights with the highest score and dared to guarantee that Beryl's reaction abilities were the ultimate. From that point on, Alucia had another ambition, to bring the holy swordsmanship of their hometown out into the world, so that their talent wouldn't be wasted. To do that, she needed to become a commander and achieve many accomplishments. And after she had everything she needed, 10 years had quickly passed. Holding power and strength in her hands, Alucia finally dared to invite her teacher back to teach. Unexpectedly, Beryl hadn't changed at all. The only thing that had changed was that his skills were even sharper than before. Some might think she was abusing her power, but Alucia wanted her teacher to have a position that was worthy of him in others' eyes. She had prepared everything for that. Back at the training hall, Alucia didn't see Beryl, so she asked Drought. Drought replied, Karuni took the teacher to tour the city. Hearing this, Drought couldn't help but feel jealous of her junior, because she wanted to do the same. It would have been considered an official date. On the other side, the two were strolling around everywhere, but it was mostly Karuni having fun while Beryl wasn't really doing anything. This western district had many places to buy delicious food, so Karuni really enjoyed going there. Beryl thought, an old country bumpkin like me doesn't belong in a lively place like this. Just then, another student came over to greet them. Ficelle was in the same class as Karuni, so they were very close. At first, Beryl didn't even know who she was, and then she suddenly called him teacher, which caught him off guard. Ficelle was a bit sad to be forgotten, but she had changed so much that he didn't recognize her. After seeing the sword that was proof of her completing her training, he remembered she was the cold student from before, but because she was more open now, he had forgotten. 5 years had passed, and Ficelle said she had grown up, and was now a rising star in the magic squad. Beryl was confused. Why did you join them when you're a swordsman? She also needed to buy some magic accessories. She took out a ring and activated fire magic for her old teacher to see. After seeing it, Beryl truly believed she was a mage. Very few people had the talent to be in this profession, proving that Ficelle had worked very hard, and was famous for possessing both swordsmanship and magic skills. Beryl cherished Ficelle quite a bit. So he was a bit sad when she left the training hall, but now he was very proud that he had trained such a talented individual. Just then, a thief snatched something, so Ficelle wanted to show her former teacher what she could do. She activated a spell on her sword, and just like that, she tied up the thief's legs. Karuni then rushed in and successfully apprehended him. Both of them were used to dealing with criminals. Ficelle explained that she had put magic on her sword. He had never thought that someone would apply swordsmanship to magic, so he had to thank Ficelle for bringing him glory. Early the next morning, he woke up early and went for a walk, wanting to do something to avoid being seen as a country bumpkin. At that moment, someone kept following him and calling out to him, but Beryl didn't bother to respond, so the person got annoyed. Turning around, he saw it was a young girl, so Beryl asked if she was lost. In reality, this woman came looking for him with a purpose, because she knew Beryl was Ficelle's swordsmanship teacher. Lucy introduced herself, saying she was Lucy, the commander of the magic squad. The guy thought kids these days like such things, and got scolded, being told that she wasn't joking around, and she might even be older than Beryl himself. He didn't believe it, so she showed him. Lucy then tricked him, saying it would be fun to take a walk with a companion, so she led him elsewhere. After hearing Ficelle talk about her master, she was very interested and said that girl was very eager to meet Beryl again. The sword magic was impeccable, praising the swordsmanship teacher. Beryl modestly said that everything was due to Ficelle's efforts, and he only taught the basics. He even asked if this young girl wanted to learn too. This was exactly what she wanted, so she revealed her purpose. She wanted to spar with the swordsmanship teacher. Fighting a strong opponent would make her stronger. A battle immediately erupted. At first, Beryl thought it was just a friendly joke, but she created a whole bunch of magic spells, threatening him, so he had to draw his sword. Though still not warmed up, they have to fight for self-defense. Lucy believes the most important thing is to see self-improvement, and the best way to do that is to fight a strong opponent. Lucy asks if Beryl is qualified to try, and he humbly says he's not strong enough for that. Lucy wants to try to find out and immediately creates a giant fireball. Beryl is forced to dodge and try to get closer, or he'll be roasted. Lucy continuously unleashes a barrage of moves, fire, then ice. Beryl thinks this is just the beginning, not his full power. At least the ice magic can be slashed, so he doesn't have a problem. Lucy admits he's really strong. Not wanting to injure him badly, Beryl decides to make a surprise attack with his chain sword. With his speed, Beryl successfully gets close, but before he can do anything, the opponent's whole body bursts into flames to push him away. Lucy smiles and advises Beryl not to get close like that. It's really terrifying that a magic user can outperform a master swordsman. And it doesn't stop there. Lucy wants to unleash even stronger magic. Beryl tries to dodge the pouring rain of fire. And it's revealed that he's never faced a mage before. This feeling is really bad, when it's very difficult to approach. If it weren't for his great reflexes, the fight would be over. Lucy starts seriously creating a giant ice block, trying to crush him. However, he slashes it towards Lucy to create space. Lucy uses fire to evaporate the ice block to approach again. However, she hasn't used her full magic yet, so the opponent continues to be pushed back. He didn't expect that tiny body to have so many skills. After being threatened twice, Lucy is about to unleash her strongest move. Beryl is wondering if he can do it. Suddenly, his whole body feels weighed down. The pressure Lucy is exerting is enormous, shaking the entire area like there's an earthquake. Beryl thinks he'd definitely die if he got hit by this. Luckily, Lucy proactively stops, not wanting to fight anymore. Lucy also admits she's just like a child, playing this trick. If the last magic doesn't shake Beryl, she would give up. Lucy thought she had timed it right to win, but Beryl was so strong. Beryl thanks Lucy for stopping and asks what would happen if he was hit by that magic. Lucy bluntly says he would definitely explode, scaring him. Lucy doesn't show anything, saying if she restrained herself, it wouldn't be completely destroyed, and his relatives could still pick him up. After this fight, Lucy understood why Ficelle admired him so much, and she has never beaten her father at home. Lucy thought to herself that the old man must be strong. She also wants to know if Lucy's attack made him feel a chill down his spine. Beryl smiles and says that phase was really difficult, making Lucy smile. Lucy promises to meet him at the Magic Academy next time, and promises to make up for what happened today. Beryl doesn't have talent in this field, but also wants to try to find out. Lucy also made a request, saying if he learned any new magic, she would come to try it like today. That's really something. Cut to Ficelle. She went to the Knight's order to deliver recovery medicine, and also wanted to talk to the teacher for a bit. The Knights always order magic medicine from her, which seems interesting, because every time he gets injured he uses herbal medicine. The student also has to give Beryl a bottle to apologize for the fight this morning, and she heard it from Lady Lucy. Only now does she believe Lucy is the real commander. Ficelle says Lucy looks so young because of magic, but no one here knows Lucy's age. Beryl also accepted the gift and didn't blame the student at all. At this time Alucia arrives, wanting to talk to Beryl about a few things. Seeing this, the other girl asks to leave first and meet the teacher later. Entering the room, he heard that Lysandra wanted to ask for help. Lysandra represents the Adventurers Guild, and has also been allowed by the Knights to invite Beryl to support them. This is a request from the guild master, but he doesn't know why they even knew about Beryl to invite him. Beryl asks what he needs to teach, and the student says to prepare for the first dungeon conquest, and the ability to respond if an emergency occurs, so they need his swordsmanship skills. Speaking of dungeons, he also tried it in the past, because the items from monsters are very valuable. If you're lucky you might even find a treasure chest. However, it's very dangerous, scaring Beryl to this day. Like if he gets beaten up the first time, he'll really be scared. Lysandra thinks it won't be a problem if it's him. For Alucia, she doesn't care about the offer, but wants others to recognize the teacher's strength. Lysandra agrees and, as always, the two start fighting again, with neither giving in. Seeing this scene, Beryl doesn't know what to say, feeling like they never get along. For now, Lysandra wants the teacher to talk to the guildmaster first. The rules of the Knights don't affect the instructor, so Beryl is free to do what he wants. Unexpectedly, the headquarters of the Adventurers Guild is right next to the Knights, so the student takes him in. Lucy is also here, and immediately invites him to sit down. He wonders why Lucy is acting like she's at home. More importantly, what is the purpose of coming here? Lucy says she actually heard the opponent was coming, so she stopped by. Lysandra says Lucy is a friend of the guildmaster. He stands up and introduces himself as Nidus, generally believing in Beryl because he's the one the top adventurer Lysandra introduced. Hearing this, Lucy also recommends him, making him even more relieved even though Beryl has agreed to help. Nidus introduces the assistant, Megan. From now on, the two will work together. Megan starts by wanting to know what Beryl has achieved as an adventurer. This seems offensive, making Lysandra annoyed. Megan doesn't give in. Even if the magic commander recommends him, amateurs shouldn't enter the dungeon because it's very dangerous. Beryl is happy because he might avoid the work. Like instead, the student sitting next to him doesn't allow anyone to disrespect her master. He says there have been many reports of mutated monster species recently. Of course the guild will be responsible if anything happens, but it's best to give up as soon as you start if you don't have the experience. To have a basis, Megan requests that the two teachers fight each other with full power, so they can see firsthand whether Beryl's swordsmanship skills are good enough to participate in this trip. Suddenly being forced to fight Lucy, Beryl doesn't like it much, but she likes it a lot, agreeing for both to always be evil. In this way, they went to the training area in front of many adventurers. It's rare for someone to dare to fight Lucy because she's very high ranked. The feeling is really stressful. As for Lysandra, she's been looking forward to this day for a long time. Recalling her past, she was very pitiful, born into a family of merchants. She and her parents had to go everywhere to make a living, and that day they were attacked by monsters on the road. Parents, to protect their children's lives, pushed the child out, but accidentally fell into the water, but at least it helped Lysandra escape. Beryl was the one who found the girl and brought her back for treatment. In the beginning, she would often have pain when she remembered her parents. And Beryl also asked to take care of her until she found a new family and she started to fall in love with swordsmanship. When the teacher praised her, she became a little happier. Day by day Lysandra regained her vitality, and was considered very suitable for the adventure job. A few times later, a couple stood up to adopt her. Although it was quite sad, it was very good for her to develop later. Just staying in this countryside was not okay. A few years later Lysandra became a gold-ranked adventurer. Once she met a group of robbers without saying anything she ran into a bloodbath with them. There are two reasons why she became an adventurer now. One is to prevent others from encountering a tragedy like she was when she was a child, and the other is to promote the teacher's peak swordsmanship. They still bow to each other sincerely as they did in the past, which makes Beryl very happy because she is still his student, and he will do his best to repay her expectations. Currently Lysandra is using double swords. Her skills are beyond ordinary people, but Beryl can still block everything. Their speed is terrifying, making Lucy happy. He knows Lysandra is always serious in training, so she is so strong. However, she has a weakness. The result has been exploited by Beryl in just 2 moves. He has overthrown the student and ended the battle with the victory leaning towards him. After this phase, Lysandra praises that the teacher is still as strong as ever. Beryl humbly says that if it takes 10 more seconds he will lose, and points out the weakness on the left hand for her. Megan after this has bowed his head to apologize for suspecting. The guildmaster also relies on him to assist the new adventurers to complete the mission. The next day, the 2 teachers also started work. Porta, Nidri and Salikas are the 3 lucky ones to be guided. They are all silver rank adventurers, so they have some experience. Entering the dungeon, all 3 use magic items to determine the number of monsters nearby. Very quickly they have eliminated the goblins under the supervision of the other 2. All 3 are very confident to complete the first mission. However, Lysandra feels that today is too strange because the number of monsters has been reduced so much, so just when she felt something, Porta has been attacked by it. The 2 teachers immediately rushed out to help and realized the creature is a special monster. Lysandra calls it Gino Grable, and the reason for the few monsters in the dungeon is that this monster has eaten clean. Those monsters with names are incredibly powerful. Not everyone stumbles upon them like this, so Beryl considers himself quite unlucky. Knowing Lysandra carries healing potions, he imagined letting her fight while he rescued Porta, and even held out his hand for the potion. But the girl didn't get the hint and gave him a congratulatory high five instead. Beryl then rushed to save the young man, much to his dismay, because it was supposed to be the other way around. The monster started attacking, forcing Beryl to fight back constantly, unleashing powerful claw strikes. Beryl had to defend and find an opening, but the creature's front limbs were too tough, and his attacks had little effect. Conversely, getting hit by one of its attacks would certainly be fatal. After seeing Lysandra get the person inside the cave, Beryl felt relieved. To be safe, he needed to stall for a bit longer, waiting for her to come out so they could work together to defeat it. With overwhelming power, Gino Grable constantly pushed back his opponent. Wounds began to appear on Beryl's body. He thought its head was its weakness, so he aimed for it, but the monster could breathe fire. Attacking head-on without reacting in time would definitely result in being roasted alive. Beryl thrusted his sword from a distance and quickly retreated to a defensive stance. Seeing this, the bird-headed beast whipped its tail, only to have it chopped off. It cried out, finding a worthy opponent. Beryl continued to be pushed back by Gino Grable's flames. He couldn't block this attack, so he had to keep his distance. Seeing this, the monster used its superior strength to charge and push the rural swordsman away. Beryl successfully stalled and even managed to climb onto its back to attack. The monster angrily flew into the sky, trying to shake Beryl off, but he held on tightly. Beryl was overwhelmed by the wind pressure, so he eventually had to land back where he started to deal with it. Gino Grable was furious, roaring, and transforming the entire surrounding area into lava. Beryl didn't expect it to have such a move, which was quite annoying. He intended to keep his distance, but the lava spread inside, endangering everyone. Hearing their cries, he knew he had to end the battle immediately and charged in. Even though the ground was melting from the heat, his legs didn't stop. The monster, in too much pain from the cuts, tried to spew fire to drive Beryl away, but he dodged it all, charging forward and stabbing the sword into its eye, causing Gino Grable immense pain. Its struggles resulted in the destruction of Beryl's weapon. Fortunately, Lysandra joined the fight, giving her teacher a helping hand. She used dual swords to stab from above. The monster was already weakened, so it didn't take long for her to defeat it. She thanked her teacher for stalling, because thanks to him, they were able to defeat the monster. She felt a bit sorry that she was late, which is why Beryl's sword was broken. As for Porta and the other 2, they were safe, so there was nothing to worry about. All 3 came out, making Beryl very happy. Lysandra then brought up the earlier incident, which felt quite nostalgic. After resolving the situation, they brought the monster's leg back to the guild to receive their reward. The other 2 were shocked that it was a named monster. The woman said that all the credit belonged to their teacher, or else their group would have been wiped out. Beryl was modest, because it was his student who delivered the final blow. The guild master was very grateful, not knowing how to repay them. Seeing the other 2 praise her teacher, Lysandra was also pleased, and was even invited to become an adventurer, but declined because she only liked teaching swordsmanship. Outside, the girl thought the guild master was mistaken, because her teacher shouldn't be stuck being an adventurer. Being praised so highly, he felt embarrassed. Lysandra also apologized for the incident, knowing that she was overpraising Beryl, but it was all true because he was very strong. She was also happy to be fighting alongside her swordsmanship teacher again. Beryl had to compliment her for always making the right choices, which allowed everyone to return safely. Being praised for her growth, Lysandra shyly blushed, not daring to accept those words. She remembered the image of practicing with Beryl in the past, which was so much fun. The next day, Beryl was taken to a blacksmith by Karuni to get a new sword. A teacher without a weapon felt awkward. She also needed to stop by, so she was happy to be going with her teacher today, along with Alucia. Although she was a bit busy, she still tried to go along, using the excuse that choosing a sword for her teacher was important, and as a commander, she definitely had to join. In addition, she was jealous of Lysandra and Karuni because they had private time with Beryl, so this time she had to monopolize him. When asked about the weapon shop, Karuni smiled and said that Beryl would definitely be surprised when they arrived. It was a not-so-large smithy, but the craftsmanship was top-notch. The owner was also one of Beryl's disciples. He had to greet his teacher when he saw the person who taught him swordsmanship years ago. Both sides expressed their joy at not seeing each other for a long time. He was a special case at the dojo in his hometown. Vander was the oldest of the disciples, and with a passion for blacksmithing, he wanted to know how swordsmen fought so that he could forge good weapons. Although it was a bit humorous, Beryl was happy to see his disciple achieve such success. When asked what they were there for today, he learned that Karuni wanted to maintain her weapon. This lovely girl specializes in short swords, but after looking at it, it was quite badly damaged, and even if it was repaired, it wouldn't be as good as before. The advice was to buy a new one. But Beryl asked Karuni, "How do you feel about switching to a long sword?" Overall, it was quite comfortable, so the teacher concluded that the short sword was not suitable for her, and she had to feel the weight to fight well. In Beryl's experience, a two-handed weapon was a suitable choice. After holding it, she felt quite normal, not too heavy and not too light. Being praised by her teacher, she immediately agreed to buy the new sword. And it felt great to hold this weapon, making her very happy. When asked about how to maintain it, the owner said that each type of sword had its own way of maintaining it. When it was Beryl's turn to choose a weapon, Alucia spoke up, thinking that with her teacher's level, he should have one made specifically, so that he could exert his full power. He was going to refuse, since he didn't fight much and didn't need to do that. Plus, all the swords here were good ones. As soon as he finished speaking, Lysandra brought in the leg of the monster from yesterday. Meeting a rival here, the two showed their displeasure again. Beryl stood in the middle to mediate and see what she was here for. The girl was hoping to forge a new sword for Beryl using high-quality materials from Gino Grable. The owner was shocked, because if this was used to forge a weapon, it would definitely be a super rare sword. Alucia didn't give in, thinking that the task of providing weapons for the instructor should belong to her knight order, and she could handle this herself, requesting the other girl to back off. Beryl was speechless, not knowing how to advise the two. Lysandra said that this was what she could do to apologize to her teacher. Although Beryl wasn't worried about the broken sword, she was still pondering it, and the owner also advised her teacher to accept this gift because Lysandra had already said that. Beryl had no choice and agreed. Vander held the precious material in his hand. Thinking that a sword forged by a named monster was unbelievable. The owner already had a plan in his head, and told his teacher to rest assured that he would make the best weapon. He asked Beryl to wait another week. With that done, they were about to head back, but Karuni wanted to monopolize her teacher a little longer. The two then went to the training room to teach this girl how to use the new weapon effectively. Beryl had already tried this type of weapon, so he talked about the two characteristics of this sword. The first was to swing the sword horizontally, which would take advantage of the centrifugal force. The second was to use the ricasso, which was the unsharpened part of the sword's blade. Holding it this way would change the center of gravity, and although it would be more difficult to swing the sword, it would gradually become familiar. Beryl showed the girl how to swing the sword with her hips instead of just using her arms. Being taught like this, Karuni also felt nostalgic. That was the first thing he taught his student at the dojo. In the evening, Beryl had a hearty meal without worrying about anything, all thanks to those cute students. On the way home, he unfortunately encountered professional pickpockets. After passing by, the girl was about to reach in and take the money, but was stopped. Beryl possessed incredible reflexes, so even though she acted quickly, she was still caught in the act. To escape, the girl used fire magic to attack, forcing Beryl to keep his distance. After returning to the base, which was the hideout of outlaws, she had to hand over all the money she had earned today. Seeing that it was too little, they asked if she was hiding any. The leader thought Freya wouldn't dare to do that because she was being forced to earn money, but suddenly at this time, she realized that she had dropped an important item on this side. Beryl picked up the item, lamenting that he wasn't very good at dealing with fire. A few days later, Master Beryl continued his private training sessions with Drought and the others. Drought had shown considerable improvement, now using feints to deceive his opponents. However, with his own exceptional reflexes, Beryl easily parried and ended the sparring match. He praised Drought's progress, but Drought modestly insisted that he still needed to work harder. In addition, Karuni was also growing accustomed to combat with her new weapon. Switching to a two-handed sword was a risky proposition, but fortunately, with Beryl's watchful guidance, there were no serious issues. Drought expressed his hope for Karuni's quick improvement, as the Knight's Order was sorely in need of reinforcements. When asked about the urgency, Drought revealed that a band of thieves known as the Twilight Shadows had secretly infiltrated the capital. They were working alongside the royal guards to investigate before any significant incident occurred. Once their hideout was located, Drought intended to launch an immediate assault, which was why the Order needed to bolster its forces. Beryl believed that everyone currently present would undoubtedly prevail, but Drought argued that overwhelming the enemy would ensure greater safety. Drought wouldn't even consider dragging his mentor, Beryl, into such dangerous affairs. At this point, Beryl produced the item he'd recovered a few days prior, showing it to Karuni and Drought. Karuni exclaimed over how cute the necklace was, mistaking it for a gift Beryl intended to give to their captain. She even jokingly advised him to choose something a little more mature for her. Both of them were taken aback when Beryl clarified that he had merely found it and had no intention of giving it away as a gift. Beryl then recounted how he'd almost been pickpocketed, and how, after grabbing the culprit's hand, they'd managed to escape by using magic. He admitted that he'd been facing a lot of fire-based magic lately, which was a bit of a nuisance. Karuni found this rather odd. If someone possessed the ability to use magic, why would they resort to pickpocketing? Magic was a rare and valuable skill, and simply joining the Magic Academy would secure them funding. Both children and adults could live in the Academy's dormitories, and upon graduation, they could become accomplished mages or adventurers, allowing them to earn money without issue. Drought found that unusual as well, suggesting that perhaps the thief was using magic through an enchanted item, which would make more sense. Although such items were expensive, they could potentially be stolen. Karuni asked Beryl what he planned to do with the item, and he said he would return it to its owner. Drought advised simply leaving it at the Knight's Order's reception desk, so that when someone came to claim it, it could be returned easily. Later, Beryl followed Drought's advice, which put his mind at ease. What bothered him was the expression in the young thief's eyes. For someone so young to possess such a look of despondency was truly unsettling. Beryl was also planning to find more permanent lodgings, but the rents were simply too high. He would have enough money to get by, but he wouldn't be able to indulge in his usual drinking habits. Just then, Freya approached, searching for her lost item. Beryl recognized her immediately and struck up a conversation. Upon realizing that he was the troublesome individual from before, she scowled fiercely, seeming ready to cause trouble right there in broad daylight. Freya demanded that he return her property. But Beryl advised her to calm down, as he had already turned it in at the Order's reception desk. Hearing that her item was in the possession of the Knight's Order, Freya grew worried about being arrested. Once she learned that it was deemed important, not just some trinket that she had tried to steal, she offered to retrieve it herself, arguing that it would be faster and easier than proving that the item belonged to her. Beryl, having never encountered a girl with such an aggressive demeanor, felt a little intimidated. He asked for her name, but she refused to give it, and Beryl cautioned her against resorting to theft again. Seeing her avert her gaze, Beryl realized that Freya likely knew right from wrong, but was being forced into petty crime by her circumstances. After retrieving the item, Beryl did not return it immediately. He insisted on talking things over. Due to the noise outside, Alucia came to investigate, demanding to know who the young girl was, even jokingly asking if she was Beryl's illegitimate daughter. Beryl reprimanded Alucia for making such an absurd remark. After they went inside and Beryl explained the situation, Alucia understood. Freya, however, remained self-assured, showing no fear of arrest and claiming she hadn't actually done anything wrong. Beryl agreed, pointing out that he had intervened before she could actually pickpocket him. More importantly, he didn't want her to re-offend, but she retorted that it was none of his business. Since the item belonged to her, he should simply return it. Alucia praised the girl's frankness, and that she did not lie about not intending to pickpocket someone again. Alucia then expressed her curiosity about Freya's ability to use magic without the aid of a magical implement, and suggested that she consider enrolling in the Magic Academy, as the country would provide full funding. Hearing all of this, Beryl felt delighted that he had, in his own way, inspired someone to be so kind. Freya then proceeded to reveal her personal troubles, explaining that she needed to gather 5 million, not to raise a child, but to save her sister. If she could pay that sum, a certain individual claimed that he could use magic to revive her beloved sister. Upon hearing this, both Beryl and Alucia immediately realized that Freya was being drawn into a scam. With the urgency stemming from lack of funds, she resorted to pickpocketing to acquire the money as quickly as possible. Beryl didn't want to outright denounce the individual and shatter her hope. Alucia, understanding his reluctance, excused herself, saying that she would be back soon. With Alucia gone, Beryl stayed behind, doing his best to distract Freya by offering her pastries and tea, while trying to buy some time. Seeing Freya's stomach growl loudly, the Master Swordsman fetched her a large piece of bread to eat. Freya, no longer hesitating, snatched it up, devouring it ravenously as she hadn't had anything to eat in days. Beryl recounted how seeing the despondent look in Freya's eyes concerned him, and how, even as a middle-aged man, he could at least listen to her troubles, though he might not be able to provide much practical help. The two of them then formally introduced themselves, and Freya told him not to treat her like a little kid. After retrieving her necklace, Freya, putting on a happy face, made ready to leave, but at that moment, Lucy arrived. Learning that there was a talented individual here, as well as a case related to magic, Lucy expressed keen interest. After hearing the full story from Alucia, the commander of the Magic Brigade immediately expressed interest in recruiting Freya, as their forces were always lacking. Upon being introduced, Freya flatly refused to believe that Lucy was in fact more than a kid. Lucy didn't take offense, pointing out that there was another individual present who initially shared her disbelief, but now knew better than to underestimate her. To prove her capabilities, Lucy conjured a small flame to heat up the teacup, which caused Freya's eyes to widen in awe. At that point, Freya finally accepted that this was indeed the commander of the Magic Brigade. Lucy advised Freya to enroll in the Magic Academy, for even 5 million wouldn't be enough to save her sister. She went on to flatly state that resurrection magic did not exist. No matter the price paid, the dead could never be brought back to life. Beryl attempted to stop Lucy from being too blunt, but she cut him off, arguing that she had to hear the truth. Freya remained steadfast in her belief that her sister could be resurrected, as she had already witnessed the phenomenon firsthand. Although only a slight movement, the man was able to make the dead move, and he demanded a sum of 5 million to bring her back to life. If, within that time, Freya could manage to earn the money, he promised that the body wouldn't decay. Upon hearing this, the commander of the Magic Brigade immediately knew it was a cheap scam. Lucy reiterated, with unwavering certainty, that resurrection magic did not exist, asking Freya whether she trusted a man who forced a child to become a pickpocket more than someone who dedicated their entire life to studying magic. Beryl, feeling deeply sympathetic to Freya's circumstances, wanted to help. Lucy, especially concerned about any charlatan claiming the ability to resurrect the dead, stated that if he was lying, he was defiling the spirit of the deceased. Such scum could not be forgiven. These words prompted Freya to reveal the man's identity. Lucy wanted to confront him directly, hoping to prove her own assertions. If she was wrong, she vowed to personally give Freya 5 million so that she could save her sister herself. Alucia mentioning Twilight Shadows, an organization that has been under increasing scrutiny lately, only served to make matters more urgent. They requested that she lead them to the group's hideout, as not returning to the hideout soon would make the gang suspicious. With Freya increasingly doubtful, she reluctantly agreed. Alucia excused herself to summon reinforcements, but Lucy stopped her, as it would be too conspicuous to have the entire Knight's Order involved. For the time being, Lucy and Beryl would head there first, then Alucia could follow and do whatever she felt was necessary. Ordinarily, Beryl preferred to avoid such troublesome affairs, but this particular case had struck a nerve, as he hated those who would exploit children. On the way to the hideout, the three discussed Freya's background. It seemed that the two sisters had always relied on one another to survive, having never known their parents. The place she lived was full of orphans, but was also surprisingly the birthplace of many talented mages. Following Freya's directions, the two adults were led to an unremarkable location. Who would have thought that the Twilight Shadows gang was hiding in plain sight in the middle of the road? It seemed the old adage, the most dangerous place is the safest, was true in this case. As they were about to head inside, Freya warned them that the front door was always kept locked, and they had to go through the back. However, Lucy was having none of that, blasting away the front wall to announce their arrival to those inside. One of the thugs, thinking Lucy was just a child, attempted to grope her, but was promptly blasted away. The commander of the Magic Brigade declared that she had come to have a word with their leader, and proceeded to stride past them. She delegated the task of dealing with the smaller fry to the Master Swordsman. Seeing Beryl brandishing a wooden sword only served to fuel their contempt. They recognized Freya as the one who had brought the cops down on them and vowed she would pay. However, those charging at Beryl were summarily dispatched, and one thug was stabbed through the throat by Freya herself for being insolent. Downstairs, the leader, hearing the sounds of fighting, remained unperturbed, knowing who was coming to call. He even remarked that the esteemed guest was none other than the commander of the Magic Brigade herself. Lucy, for her part, was disgusted that this man had blasphemed magic by claiming he could perform the forbidden art of resurrection, while she could use magic innately. This man obviously had to rely on enchanted tools to do so. First, he employed ice magic, but it proved wholly ineffective. Lucy mocked him, saying he wore a lot of toys, but if that was all he had, she would be sorely disappointed. The leader then switched to gravity magic, manipulating nearby objects. This was how he had deceived Freya into believing that her sister had moved. The leader chuckled, saying, "Children are so easy to trick, huh?" Lucy, who was being telekinetically hoisted into the air, continued her counterattack, and with one serious blow managed to incapacitate the leader. Derisively, she stated that only amateurs relied on cheap tricks and toys to win against the real thing. Beryl, meanwhile, had dispatched nearly all of the henchmen using his wooden sword, but the difference in skill was overwhelming. One of the remaining thugs tried to threaten Freya about her dead sister's corpse, but was immediately silenced by the leader. Alucia then came in and apprehended the leader, threatening to give him the same beating as before if he didn't tell her everything. Overcome with pain, he readily confessed that resurrection magic didn't exist. Absorbing the crushing truth, Freya was devastated. With the matter resolved, Lucy declared that she would leave, promising to send some royal guards soon to clean up the place. Beryl stayed behind to find Freya's sister's corpse, but he was unable to locate it. Now knowing that resurrection magic was nothing but a false promise, Freya at least wanted to give her sister a proper burial. In an effort to comfort her, Beryl stated that there were still a great many kind and compassionate people in the world who could assist her, so she didn't have to shoulder her burden alone. Freya also admitted that she could tell that Beryl was angry at her, so she felt somewhat vindicated to know that he had pummeled the final thug with such ferocity. The case, however, was not yet closed. The leader possessed several superior enchanted items, indicating that he was taking orders from someone more powerful. After the scene, Lucy promised to take care of Freya, and said they would meet some other time. Just after they had parted ways, someone used magic to eliminate the evidence, causing the gang leader to explode. That magic user returned to the church and reported the news to the old man, who was happy. He stated to himself that the most important thing was to collect many corpses to create the magic of the Lord, hoarding what he needed for what he believed would be coming in the future. The next day, after finishing his training, Beryl is informed by Alucia that the man they were escorting yesterday died. His body suddenly exploded, and they couldn't do anything to prevent it. Inside the corpse, they found something resembling a magic artifact. Currently, the knights are investigating, with the assistance of the Magic Guild. Beryl asks about the corpses they had collected, but the remaining henchmen claim to be unaware. As a result, the location where they are being transported is currently unknown. The leader possessed many rare magic artifacts, so there's definitely someone pulling the strings. Beryl finds this annoying. He wishes things had ended last night. Later, Beryl goes to pick up the sword that Mr. Bander forged. This weapon took a lot of time to sharpen. Although it was arduous, creating a good product makes the blacksmith happy. Karuni compliments the sword's beauty. Beryl, on the other hand, thinks it doesn't suit an old geezer like him. She disagrees, saying it suits him perfectly and wants him to try it out right away. Beryl is quite eager, so he decides to try it out later when he gets home. However, as soon as they leave the alley, they run into Lucy. She has something important to discuss, so she invites Beryl to come with her. Soon after, they arrive at Lucy's house. Despite her small stature, Lucy lives in a freaking huge house. When they ask about Freya, they learn that she's doing well. They are currently preparing the procedures to help her enroll in the Magic Academy, and inside, there's another old man waiting. Beryl is awkward, he doesn't know who this is and is introduced to Ibroy, a priest of the Church of Spin. Upon hearing this, Beryl is quite surprised because this person comes from the country next door. He greets them and gets straight to the point. The magic artifacts of the guy who exploded yesterday were all made in the neighboring kingdom. They were transferred to him through Bishop Reveros. In exchange, that guy would have to collect corpses for him. And perhaps to silence this guy, they detonated a remotely controlled magic artifact. What's hard to understand is why the bishop is collecting corpses. The friend explains that their purpose seems to be to use the magic of spin. Among the magic, there is the highest level performed by the god spin, which is the resurrection of the dead. Because no one has ever witnessed it, this is considered a legend. It's also not widely publicized, and only a few people know about it. Bishop Reveros is probably collecting corpses to study this magic. If everything was clean, there wouldn't be a problem. Therefore, they need to investigate and clarify everything before it goes too far. Reveros is currently at the Church of Spin in the Northern District. The knights have summoned him for tomorrow. If he cooperates, that's good, but if he tries to flee the country, they have to stop him. Suddenly, Beryl has a bad feeling about this. The friend also hopes that Beryl can help with the matter. If the knights and the Magic Guild intervene, this will become a serious international incident. Ibroy is a bishop, so it's even harder for him to act directly. Therefore, they have to rely on Beryl to help because he can act freely. Alucia understands the situation, and everything has been arranged. If Riveros' crimes are confirmed, she will absolutely not forgive him for bringing unhappiness to Freya. When they ask Beryl what he thinks, he agrees, figuring that they might find Freya's sister's body there. Besides, they will also pay Beryl a large reward after the matter is resolved. So, he considers it like he's taking on a quest as an adventurer. As they reach the door, Freya arrives with new clothes. It seems Freya lives here and is being well cared for. Lucy also asks if she's bought everything she needed, which makes her a little embarrassed. Freya doesn't understand why everyone is treating her so well. Lucy believes it's normal for adults to take care of children. Beryl agrees, and then they are reminded of the pickpocketing incident and the fact that she was still given money and allowed to go to school freely. This feeling makes Freya uneasy because she's never been cared for so much. Since everything has changed so quickly in just a few days, it's understandable that she's finding it difficult to adjust. Seeing this, Beryl advises her, kids don't need to think so much. Just relax and enjoy life. Because here, no adults will lie to you or exploit you, so don't worry. The little girl still hasn't accepted it and asks if this is really okay. Beryl thinks everything will be fine, so she should gradually get used to it because there's still a bright future ahead. Touched by these words, Freya is delighted and says, if I still can't forget about the attack, I'll treat you to a meal when I'm older. He's about to pat her head, but she pushes his hand away because she doesn't like being treated like a child. With that, Beryl heads home to prepare for his actions that night. As Lucy predicted, when these guys refuse to cooperate at all and try to escape that night, Beryl has to rush to intercept them. However, a young man discovers his actions. He witnessed everything from the previous incident when they defeated that night owl and guessed that Beryl would come here, so he was here to stop them. He asks them where they're going when they were summoned for the next day. The man doesn't want to talk much and immediately has his people surround them, all of them using magic to enhance themselves. Thanks to that, their speed has increased significantly, which slightly surprises Beryl. Though he'd heard of this spell before, he didn't expect it to be so effective. It's been a while since he used a real sword to slash someone like this, but if he doesn't act, he'll be in danger, so he tries his best. Beryl dodges and then counterattacks, simply slashing through the armor of those guys. Other guys arrive one after another, but Beryl's students stop them. Alusia arrives to help, and Karuni is there too, making Beryl worry and ask why the two of them came since it's dangerous. The girl pretends, we just happened to be passing by. Thanks to their help, everything becomes easier. The enhancement magic of these guys is strong, but its fatal weakness is that the activation time is very short. And after using it, their bodies are weakened, so the two girls ask the swordmaster to go on ahead. Leave this to us. With that, Beryl runs into the church, but Bishop Reveros blocks his way. He chants an enhancement spell for his subordinate behind him while animating the corpses. This is what he calls a miracle, which makes Beryl feel disgusted. Among them, there's someone who looks a lot like Freya, proving that this is her sister. Since there's no other choice, he has to slash at the zombies attacking him. After removing their heads, the corpses are purified and disappear. The last one is Freya's sister, who he releases in the gentlest way possible, much to his regret. Her body vanishes before his eyes, and Beryl is only able to keep the necklace that looks like the one her younger sister has, along with his tears of regret. The opponent then begins to fight with tremendous power. He's completely different from the others. Beryl is overwhelmed in both speed and power, so he's quickly injured. This is the strongest opponent he's faced since moving here. But he can't forgive someone who trifles with other people's lives. Beryl seriously launches an attack. After dodging, Beryl lands a hit, surprising the opponent. Reveros yells, I've received divine power, so don't think you can win. To further enhance himself, he stabs his hand with a dagger, a kind of magic artifact, to boost his power to the limit. The speed of his attacks increases, making it impossible for the swordmaster to block everything. He defends the vital areas of his body. Although he's overwhelmed in terms of attack ability, Beryl's fighting skills are far superior, and he doesn't want to lose this fight. With that determination, Beryl calmly tricks his opponent into attacking. The attack barely grazes his hand, it was extremely dangerous. If he'd been a second slower, his opponent's sword would have pierced him. In contrast, the enemy loses his balance and immediately receives a powerful slash to the arm, shattering the armor on his chest. However, he hasn't fallen and still tries to hold on. Reveros continues to fight wildly, but his slashed arm can't handle it and shatters. His whole body seems to have been slashed hundreds of times. It seems this is a side effect of using magic artifacts to enhance the body. Beryl advises his opponent to stop, but he still comes forward, saying, if I fall for the sake of divine power, so be it. He tries to swing his sword again, but his entire body loses strength and he collapses. He doesn't understand why his opponent had to go this far. He smiles and says, Beryl will never understand, before rolling over and dying. Ending the intense battle, Beryl goes outside and sees that his two students have successfully captured Bishop Reveros. Alusia is worried about her injured teacher. Fortunately, the cuts on him aren't too deep. They still claim they just happened to be passing by and weren't intentionally there. Beryl turns to ask the old man about toying with corpses. The man smiles and says, even if you arrest me, nothing will change. Miracles require bloodshed, that's essential for creating a great legacy. He talks about saving the world, which Beryl doesn't understand. The next day, Beryl meets with his friend Lucy to tell her everything about yesterday. For now, they'll be taking his statement to find out the bishop's motives. Lucy then takes Beryl to see the reward she promised. It's a fairly spacious house with a yard and everything. Knowing that Beryl usually lives in a motel, she thinks this is the most appropriate reward. When they go inside, they see Freya there, cleaning. Lucy also asks about her decision. She's still going to enroll, but they are discussing whether or not to let her live here since she needs a guardian, like a parent, to enroll. Someone living alone like Beryl would be perfect. He's a bit uneasy about this. Lucy doesn't explain what happened yesterday but tells her that Beryl did everything he could for her. So, she has to decide for herself whether she wants to live with Lucy or with Beryl. Freya trusts Beryl, so she decides to live here. The Master Swordsman doesn't have a choice and just smiles and accepts it. At least he won't have to pay rent anymore. After a few days living in the new house, Beryl felt extremely satisfied because it had everything he needed, from the garden to the spacious bathroom. Since he had only moved in about 5 days ago, he still wasn't quite used to it. Normally, Beryl would be the one cooking, while Freya took care of the cleaning. Although they lived together, they hadn't shared many heartfelt conversations yet. Beryl was quite surprised by her decision to live with an old geezer like him. When asked about her hobbies and food preferences, the girl simply replied, "As long as I can eat it." As for doing laundry, Freya didn't want the male lead touching it. Her habit was to soak, wring, and hang the clothes to dry without using detergent. Freya was still worried about everything around her, even asking if she could use the bathroom, which left Beryl speechless. He didn't understand why she would ask that since it was also her home. Hearing that, Freya said she wouldn't ask again next time. It was probably because in her previous life with those bad people, she always had to be so careful, so it was understandable. To become closer to the girl, the male lead often took her out to play. Since living together harmoniously and trusting each other was quite difficult, he wanted to break down the cold barrier between them. As Freya had never tasted anything so delicious before, she was also content. Next, Beryl took her to see a famous play. He was a country bumpkin, so he had never been inside such a place. Sitting until the evening, they both thought the story was pretty good, and the actors were also interesting. The next day, Freya had to go to school to familiarize herself with the place before enrolling. She had initially planned to go alone, but her teacher still went with her to put her mind at ease. Since he was currently her guardian, he couldn't just ignore her. As expected, the school specializing in training talented mages was very vast. Entering, a teacher stood up to welcome them. She introduced herself as Facel, the guide at the academy. Beryl had to admit that stepping in here, he felt overwhelmed and didn't know where to go, so having a teacher guide them was great. Freya, who wasn't used to interacting with strangers, also seemed tense. Inside, they were asked about who introduced them. The male lead said it was Lucy, the commander of the Magic Corps. The students there were also very polite, greeting the teachers as soon as they saw them. The children studying there could all become mages leading the country in the future, so the training environment had to have all the necessary elements. They also focused on teaching etiquette. Beryl thought it would take Freya a lot of time to get used to this place. And because she was personally introduced by the principal, she wouldn't need to take an entrance exam. When asked about choosing a major, the two of them didn't know anything. Facel explained that mages were divided into 5 different majors. Freya could use fire magic, so she would lean towards attack abilities. There were also other types like healing and enhancement. When asked if they wanted to stay in the school dormitory, the two of them still couldn't make a decision. Because the place accepted many students from rural areas, it naturally had a dormitory for the children to eat, sleep, and rest comfortably. They were taken on a tour that left them jaw-dropped because the living quarters for the students were very spacious, and the dining area was also clean and beautiful. It could be said that everything was incredibly wonderful, even more comfortable than at home. After leaving, the two of them had to admit that the dormitory was great. The male lead thought it would be better if the girl lived there, but with her personality, he was afraid she would have a hard time fitting in with friends. Beryl thought it was best to let her live with him for a while until she got used to it. When asked what she wanted to eat for lunch, Freya replied coldly, making him even more worried. Nearby, they saw sausages for sale, and the two of them went in to eat. Coincidentally, Lysandra was also there, so they invited her to sit at the same table. Lately, she had been on missions, so she didn't know about the girl in front of her. The teacher had to thank her a lot for the new sword, and at the same time, he told her about the incidents related to Freya. Knowing that he was living together and acting as a guardian for the girl, Lysandra was shocked. She was also jealous, but well, it was a decision from her teacher, so she wouldn't interfere. When asked about her life lately, the former student said that there had been many monster hunts recently. They had to do so because a delegation from another place was coming to visit. It was an annual meeting of allies, and the Adventurers Guild was responsible for providing protection during the meeting. After eating, Beryl let Freya go home first because he still had to go to the Knight's Order for work. He hoped that Lysandra could get acquainted with this girl since she didn't have any friends. She reminded her that after entering the Magic Academy, she would have to compete with the best, so she should try not to embarrass her teacher. The girl also said that she knew how strong the old geezer was, making Lysandra unhappy. They almost argued, forcing Beryl to mediate. Since it was also true, the girl calmed down to apologize because she considered her teacher the most wonderful person, and she couldn't accept someone calling Beryl an old geezer. Looking into those eyes, Lysandra knew that the girl understood a lot, so she said goodbye and promised to meet again later. In her estimation, the girl was a little rude but very straightforward and would go far in the future. Since he couldn't decide whether to let Freya live in the dormitory or with him, the male lead asked Alusia for her opinion. Hearing that, she was very surprised and jealous. Karuni thought that living in the dormitory was the #1 choice because it didn't waste time traveling, and the food was also delicious. Faisal once said that the dormitory was her savior, so it must be great. What he was afraid of was whether the girl could fit in with friends or not. Alusia also thought that the best way was to let Freya overcome her comfort zone to grow up, because protecting her forever wouldn't be good. Alusia agreed with this because she didn't like another girl living with her teacher. In the afternoon, to be sure, he went to Lucy for advice. She also admitted that it would be more convenient in the dormitory. Faisal also showed up and said that since her home was far away, living at school was the most convenient. Also, she would become Freya's personal trainer, according to Lucy. Because there was a shortage of talent, that girl would definitely receive the best treatment. Since she was about to become a teacher, Faisal also demanded that the teacher praise her. The male lead smiled and said she was too good. Since everyone was advising him to let Freya live at school, Beryl was a little sad and left. Faisal thought the teacher was really strange today. Lucy thought that he must be worried about trivial matters. As a guardian, Beryl thought he could become a parental figure. Before, when Freya chose to live here, he was very happy, but today he saw that she also liked the dormitory. As a guardian, he naturally wanted to prioritize the girl's choice. After returning home, the girl called the old geezer to look at the place where the strange noise was coming from. Since it was a wooden house, it was easy for mice to burrow through. He gently lifted the cabinet to the side and found a huge hole. The mice ran out from there, forcing Beryl to chase after them. Freya thought it was okay if it was just mice, but Beryl didn't want that. In case they bit and damaged clothes and things, then that would be the end of it. In addition, mice were also disease carriers, so he had to chase them away. The girl said that she wasn't that weak, and she always had mice back when she lived in the southern district. Beryl seriously said that he wouldn't let her live that kind of life again. This touched Freya. The mice were chased all over the place, but they still wouldn't surrender to the point where he overturned the table to catch one. Because he couldn't guess what the mouse was thinking, Beryl's reflexes didn't work. Fortunately, Freya gave some supporting fire in the last phase, so they managed to catch it. Because she was embarrassed, the girl left to feel at ease. Beryl went to buy a ball used to repel mice so that next time if they crawled in, they wouldn't dare to stay. The male lead then went to cook, telling the girl to go read a book or do something. Then she asked to help. The teacher gladly agreed, asking Freya to peel the vegetables. Honestly, living alone like this was also sad. Before, Beryl always lived with his family and the children at the dojo, so every day was fun. Although he wanted the girl to be here, he still had to choose the best for her. Anyway, he would come back here when there was a holiday or New Year's. Sitting down for dinner, he also complimented that because of her, he got it done very quickly. Hearing that, the girl said that next time, she would learn more about cooking to help. Beryl thought that was very good because she would need it in the future. Then the girl asked to learn right now, which surprised him because the dormitory already prepared food. Freya looked surprised and said that no one said they would be living at school. Her choice was to live at home. The male lead tried to persuade her because there was a lot of delicious food there, and it would save her a lot of traveling and she could play with people her age. In the end, Freya still chose to stay here with Beryl, so starting tomorrow, she would learn how to cook so that she could be useful to him. Hearing these words, Beryl was much happier. In reality, for Freya, it was enough to have a warm meal and didn't necessarily have to eat something delicious, so she often responded to the male lead's questions coldly. Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notification bell to stay updated when the channel releases a new video. Thank you.